Greetings, Indie Warriors, and welcome to I Dream of Indie. I'm Old Gamer Joe, and what's this? A fighting game on the channel? Wow, I'm excited. We're reviewing, well, here goes nothing. Touhou Hayabana Antinomy of Common Flowers, a tag team fighting game from developer Twilight Frontier. Apologies if I messed that up, but I've given it my best shot. This is apparently a long-running series. I feel like I've come across it at one point or another in my gaming career, but yeah, those memories are a bit foggy. Touhou Hayabana features a few different modes of play. You have a story mode where you can play with various predetermined teams. There's a one versus computer mode where you can choose the difficulty level of your computer opponent as well. There's 4 different options there. You can do player versus player, of course, and then there's a practice mode as well. There is also an online mode, and it appears at the time of this review nobody is using it, unfortunately, so hopefully that changes. While each story within the story mode is a bit different from one another, they all follow the basic underlying concept of perfect possession. And what this means is that people's bodies are being taken over by other entities, both in mind and body, so they're quite literally taking on an entirely new form. I'm not gonna lie to you, none of the stories presented within this game managed to hold my interest for very long, but I can at least appreciate that you do unlock more stories the more you play. So it adds a little bit of replayability. As far as how this game actually plays or how the combat engine works, you'll be doing a lot of flying around in Touhou Hayabana. This almost feels like a Dragon Ball fighting game at first, but the more I played, the more I was reminded of something like Marvel vs. Capcom or one of those more frantic arcade fighters of the past. You're able to switch between 2 different characters at any time, and this can lead to some pretty fun combinations. The attacks are completely crazy here. They range from being able to drop refrigerators on your opponents to shooting tigers and other wild animals at them. Outside of your standard attacks, you do have access to some special abilities as well, which you'll need to learn the inputs for. And you'll also be choosing a spell card. You choose between 3 different spells before each battle. Each spell comes with its own cost, and once you've charged up the in-game meter enough by bashing away at your opponent, you'll be able to unleash these more powerful attacks. The real fun of this one, though, comes in switching between the 2 different characters. I love juggling and performing combos against opponents, only to quickly swap in my partner and continue to dish out the damage. And because there is a pretty large cast of around 19 different female characters to choose from, the possibilities and combinations can feel pretty endless. There are other reasons to switch between characters as well, as each one of them has their own meter. When you take damage in this game with your lead character, you're able to store up the opportunity to regain some of your health, and this is represented in white on your health bar. Switching to your other partner will allow for that health to be restored so long as you aren't taking damage. The downside to that is that your partner's magic will drain, so it's a neat little risk-reward system that adds an extra element of strategy to the tag feature. I won't lie to you, I did plenty of mashing here, as I tend to do in fighting games, but I did think that the game offered up great arcade action. It's fun to play and mess around with combinations, and it's accessible enough where even newcomers won't feel completely overwhelmed. Sure, your enjoyment of Touhou Hayabana will depend on your tolerance for flashy lights and over-the-top animations, but if you do love old-school 2D arcade fighters, I think you'll find a lot to like here. Speaking of those animations, this is a game that looks quite beautiful in motion. The game reminded me again of Marvel vs. Capcom in terms of visuals, with its wonderful blend of 2D hand-drawn sprites over the 3-dimensional backgrounds. Each character animates wonderfully and is a joy to watch. I was always excited to pick a new character because I knew it would lead to tons of over-the-top looking attacks and animations. A lot of care went into each character, though I will admit the backgrounds are a bit on the drab side and they lack the charisma and the charm of the 2D sprites, but overall, this is a great looking fighter that also sounds pretty good. The music's quite reminiscent of something you might hear in a DDR game or on a taiko drum track list. There's some high energy J-pop, more melodic compositions as well that fit in great with the aesthetic. I also thought the sound effects were well executed and reminiscent of, again, classic 2D fighters, so overall, the game has a pretty nice presentation. If I did have to pick out a few flaws with Touhou Hayabana, I would say that it would have been kind of cool if the battles could have switched between landing on the ground and then becoming airborne again, but unfortunately, you are in the sky for the entirety of each battle. I'd also say that the AI was a little bit on the easy side, even on the normal difficulty, but the game does give you the option to crank that up, so that's a pretty minor complaint. The last thing I'd like to point out is that sadly, I think I mentioned this at the top of this review, but there's just no online community, which is a pretty big flaw. I would like to see more people play this one because it is a lot of fun, so we're going to have to rely on folks picking this one up and keeping that alive because right now it appears to be dead on arrival. But yeah, if you enjoy 2D fighters and you're itching for something a bit more frantic, I really got a kick out of this one. It's a game that can be picked up and played easily, but there are techniques and skills to be mastered for more advanced players. The different stories will keep you busy in the single-player department for a little bit at least, but you're likely going to want a second player for this one just in case the online never ends up taking off. In the end though, Touhou Hayabana offers up an exciting combat engine that's both fun to mash away at and to try and master. Thank you so much for watching the latest review from I Dream of Indie. We'd now like to take a moment to thank our great indie warriors, Mitchell Hall, Kevalo, Bunny, Bill Tikaz, Christian Cruz, Strict9, Rosie Syntax, Chris Jackson, Nathan Moore, Peach, Adriana Amato, CJR, Jesse, Falco Lombardi, Wesley William Semple, and C. Coyle. Thank you for all you do for independent games, indie developers and publishers, and for I Dream of Indie. Everybody else, head down to the description box below. There's a ton of ways to support I Dream of Indie, or you can become an indie warrior yourself. Help us bring a voice to the voiceless ones in gaming.